Hello, great people. There's rising tension in the polity as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar have been arguing over who is more corrupt. Both of them have been throwing shades, abusive words, and exposing secrets. On this episode of Politics with Joshua Upload, I will be unveiling to you what led to the altercation between President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. Then we'll be going down memory lane to explore the relationship between them. What is the relationship between Tinubu and Atiku before now, particularly the political relationship, and what is the implication of their strained relationship on the polity and politics of Nigeria? We'll be doing all this and more on this episode with your show plug, Dr. Omosholadeji. The altercation happened as a result of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar's statement. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar was addressing a northern, should I call it congregation now, was addressing his northern disciples, and he spoke in Hausa Fulani language. So I won't play it to you because it's not everybody that understands the language. But as reported, Atiku Abubakar was vowing to tackle corruption. He was vowing that it won't be like the Tinubu government if he ever gets to become the president of Nigeria. So when Bayo Onanuga, the aide to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when he saw that particular video and he saw that that video is going viral, particularly in the north amongst the Hausa Fulani folks, Bayo Onanuga reacted. And you would recall that Bayo Onanuga is notorious for kind of like unfriendly reaction. So Bayo Onanuga made a post that got the Atiku Abubakar camp angry, and they began to exchange war of words among each other. And let me read to you what Bayo Onanuga said in his post. Bayo Onanuga said a video of ex-VP Atiku Abubakar swearing in Allah's name to punish corrupt people has been trending. The reason is not far-fetched. People found it incredible that Atiku, now listen to this, people found it incredible that Atiku, a well-known, underline, a well-known corrupt public official, would make such a vow. You know, I said it earlier that Bayo Onanuga is notorious for unfriendly comments. You know, he doesn't kind of like operate with the kind of like decorum that you would expect from a presidential aide most times. And you look at what he said, a well-known, without any legal thing to back it up. Now, let me continue what Bayo Onanuga said that infuriated the Atiku camp. He continued, he said, in the desperation of Atiku to become president, there is nothing he would not say to hoodwink people, as if we have no memory of the past. One thing that every Muslim knows is that he who invokes God and makes false vows will undoubtedly incur the wrath of God. There are consequences for such acts. Now, this was the statement of Bayo Onanuga, and in a swift reaction, Phrank Shuaibu, who happens to be the aide of Atiku Abubakar, one of his media aides, decided to respond. And I just read what Bayo Onanuga said to you, and you saw how hot it is. Definitely, since Bayo Onanuga's statement can be this hot, definitely you should expect a crossfire from Phrank Shuaibu. Now, let me read you the statement of Phrank Shuaibu. He says that bring out one court document, just one, that proves that Atiku is corrupt. Not propaganda, not sponsored innuendos, not the fiction churned out by your media machineries. An actual conviction or indictment by any court of law in Nigeria or abroad. Bayo, you work for a man whose entire political journey, underline that, whose entire political journey is littered with sealed court records, murky educational claims, forged documents, and a litany of unresolved scandals. Now, let me read that again for emphasis. Bayo, you work for a man whose entire political journey is littered with 1. Sealed court document, 2. Murky educational claims, 3. Forged document, and 3 and 4. A litany of unresolved scandals. Don't forget that the man Phrank Shuaibu is referring to here is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But what do you expect if you have aides that cannot operate in a presidential manner, if you have aides that cannot overlook some certain things, if you have aides that decide to go beyond their boundaries in terms of responding to the critics of the opposition, definitely, if you are not a man that is as white as snow, definitely you should expect some brutal retaliation from them and their spokesperson that will embarrass you and your government. Now, let me continue the response of Phrank Shuaibu. He says, a man who was fined for drug trafficking proceeds. That is referring to Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a man whose idea of governance is nepotism wrapped in incompetence. Yet, it is Atiku Abubakar you call desperate. You speak of desperation, but who is more desperate than the gang of power mongers clinging to a failed presidency through propaganda, lies, and daily gaslighting of a nation sinking into despair? Who is more desperate than a cabal terrified of a free fair contest in 2027? So much so that every utterance from the Waziri of Adamawa sends you people into coordinated panic. That is the response of Phrank Shuaibu. You can see that if you weigh the response of Bayo Onanuga and that of Phrank Shuaibu, you will see that the response of Bayo Onanuga is not friendly, but then that of Phrank Shuaibu is also not nice in any way or manner whatsoever. In fact, if I'm to score, if I'm to grade the basketballs as they say on the street, the altercation between them, definitely I will give Phrank Shuaibu a pass mark because it hits President Bola Ahmed Tinubu very hard. And you can see some of the things that he said in that particular reply to Bayo Onanuga. Now, let us look at the relationship between Tinubu and Atiku Abubakar before now. You see, I don't like to pity them when they are fighting, particularly if it is Atiku Abubakar and Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And you know the reason why. It's very simple. Atiku Abubakar and Bola Ahmed Tinubu were close friends. They were friends before now. They were so much friends that they even plotted against Obasanjo on 2 occasions. The first one is in 2023. Obasanjo was determined to take over the state of the Southwest to make them a PDP state. We will recall that most of the states then were, I think, aide state, and at some point they became AC, then ACN, and then APC. So Obasanjo as president was determined to take over those states and make them a PDP state. So he gave Atiku Abubakar the task. He didn't want to lead, so he gave the task to his vice, Atiku Abubakar, who happens to be a Northerner. But because, from what I heard, and this thing you may have read about it before, but because Atiku Abubakar and Bola Ahmed Tinubu were friends, Atiku decided to make sure that Bola Ahmed Tinubu retained Lagos, allegedly. Now, if that is true, assuming but not considering, if that is the true story, then should we pity Atiku Abubakar and Bola Ahmed Tinubu today if they are fighting? I think Nigerians should be rejoicing in the sense that they were once friends, they plotted against Obasanjo, and Atiku made sure that Tinubu retained Lagos State against the wish of Olusegun Obasanjo. All other states were captured in the Southwest except Lagos State. Now, the second plot against Obasanjo was during the 2007 presidential election. Obasanjo wanted Yaradua, but then Tinubu aligned with Atiku Abubakar, and he gave Atiku Abubakar the ticket of the AC, or is it ACN at that point in time, and Atiku Abubakar became the presidential flag bearer of the Tinubu's, in quote, party at that point in time. So you can see that they are friends and they have long political relationships. So if they are fighting now, I would advise that nobody should pity them. But what I can say as regards corruption is that the difference between Tinubu and Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, if you look at it, is apparently the difference between 6 and half a dozen. From my lens, if you look at both of them, the difference between them is just the difference between 6 and half a dozen. The only thing is that one is more strategic and smart than the other, and the one that is more strategic is Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The one that appears smart than the other is also President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in the sense that Bola Ahmed Tinubu formed a coalition and he installed Muhammadu Buhari, and he waited for good 8 years before becoming the president. But Alhaji Atiku Abubakar has not been that strategic. He is a veteran contestant. He wants to be on the ballot just for being on the ballot sake every election, whether the coast is clear for him to win or not. And he's apparently scheming to also become a presidential flag bearer in 2027, despite the argument that it is the turn of the South. So you can see that Bola Ahmed Tinubu, despite the fact that the difference between them corruption-wise is that of 6.5 dozen, but in terms of political permutation and strategy, Bola Ahmed Tinubu appears to be more strategic and smart than Atiku Abubakar. What I can also say is no Nigerian politician is a saint. If you look at it, their degree of sainthood, if I can use that word, it just varies from one another. No Nigerian politician is 100% saint. If you have not stolen, definitely people around you have stolen as a result of your negligence. If you have not stolen, you must have favored one person one way or the other. So to my mind, no Nigerian politician is a saint, just as you will not find a saint in this world. Everybody is committing sin one way or the other every day. It's difficult to find a saint, somebody that is 100% saint. Same also from my lens, it is difficult to find a Nigerian politician that is 100% saint as regards corruption. And what I think is that both of them, it would be nice. Just imagine it that Atiku Abubakar and Bola Ahmed Tinubu have been in the political space since 1999, but so both of them should come forward and declare their asset. What is their worth pre-1999 and what is their worth today? So that will give us a clear view of who is more corrupt than the other. And you will see that Nigerian politicians' level of corruption is only different from the other. To me, majority, if not all of them, are corrupt, just that their level of corruption is different from the other. Most politicians will not be in the game if politics is not lucrative in Nigeria. All these people that want to kill and die, that are desperate to occupy political office, they won't be in the game if politics is not a lucrative game in Nigeria. Tinubu and Atiku should have an open debate on politics and ideas that will move the nation forward, rather than for them to be fighting about who is more corrupt. We want to see intellectual debate. We want to see them debate about the solution to the problem of Nigeria. And I look forward to this in the coming days. That is if they will make it happen. It's been an interesting time with you. Subscribe, turn on your notification button, catch up with my past video. See you in my next video. I love you all sincerely.